My days usually begin with the gentle hum of my laptop and the quiet satisfaction of a perfectly placed comma. As a freelance editor, my sanctuary is my home office, a cozy nook filled with stacks of books and the comforting scent of freshly brewed coffee. I thrive on order, on clarity, on making sense of tangled words and narratives. It's a stark contrast to the chaos that has always seemed to orbit my sister, Emily, a chaos that, until yesterday, I thought I had learned to navigate, or at least to avoid. My name is Sarah, and I'm the quieter one, the one who always preferred the company of a good story to the unpredictable drama of real life. Emily, on the other hand, was born for the spotlight, for the grand gesture, for turning every minor inconvenience into a Shakespearean tragedy. Our parents, bless their hearts, have always tried to maintain a fragile peace between us, a peace often shattered by Emily's tempestuous nature. My mother, Eleanor, tends to retreat into her gardening whenever conflict arises, while my father, Robert, adopts a stoic silence, hoping it will simply blow over. My grandmother, Nana Rose, now in her late 80s, is the only one who ever truly saw through Emily's theatrics, often offering me knowing glances and quiet words of encouragement. It was late afternoon, the golden hour painting stripes across my living room floor, when the front door slammed downstairs, rattling the old house. Emily. I didn't even need to hear her voice. The tremor in the floorboards was enough. My heart, a familiar drum of apprehension, picked up its pace. She bounded up the stairs, bypassing my parents' usual hellos, and burst into my office without knocking, her silhouette framed by the fading light from the hallway. Her eyes, usually a sparkling blue, were dark and stormy, fixed on me with an intensity that made my stomach clench. Her jaw was set, a muscle twitching in her cheek. "We need to talk," she spat, her voice low and dangerous, a stark departure from her usual melodramatic flair. I sat there, paralyzed, my fingers still hovering over the keyboard, a half-edited paragraph about a forgotten love story mocking the sudden terror in my own. "What is it, Em?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but it came out as a whisper, thin and reedy. She took a step closer, leaning over my desk, her face inches from mine, her breath hot on my cheek. "It's simple, Sarah. Either you leave this family, or I will ruin your life. And believe me," she hissed, her voice dropping to a chilling whisper, "the truth is scary." The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Leave the family? Ruin my life? What truth? My mind reeled, grasping for a logical explanation for the familiar pattern of Emily's overreactions, but there was none. This felt different. This was cold, calculated, and laced with a venom I'd never seen before, a threat that went beyond our usual sibling squabbles. My breath hitched in my throat, a cold dread seeping into my bones, chilling me to the core. The quiet order of my world had just been obliterated, replaced by a terrifying, unknown threat. And the worst part? I had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. My mind reeled, grasping for a logical explanation for the familiar pattern of Emily's overreactions, but there was none. This felt different. This was cold, calculated, and laced with a venom I'd never seen before, a threat that went beyond our usual sibling squabbles. My breath hitched in my throat, a cold dread seeping into my bones, chilling me to the core. The quiet order of my world had just been obliterated, replaced by a terrifying unknown threat. And the worst part? I had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. "Emily, what are you talking about?" I managed, my voice still a fragile whisper. My eyes darted from hers, searching her face for any flicker of her usual dramatic irony, but found only grim resolve. "This isn't funny." "What? Truth. What could possibly make you say something like that?" I tried to inject a note of reason, of an older sister trying to calm a wayward younger sibling, but the words felt hollow, even to me. She straightened up, a slow, deliberate movement that only amplified the tension in the room. Her gaze never left mine, burning with an almost frightening intensity. "It's not a joke, Sarah, and I'm not going to explain it to you here and now. Just know this. The choice is yours. Leave. Or face the consequences. I'm giving you a chance to walk away quietly." Her voice was devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the passionate, theatrical Emily I'd known my entire life. She turned, her shadow stretching long and distorted in the fading light, and walked out, leaving my office door ajar, a silent invitation for the growing darkness to creep in. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, the silence in the room a heavy, suffocating blanket. My fingers, still hovering over the keyboard, felt numb. The The forgotten love story on my screen seemed a cruel mockery of my own unraveling reality. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic bird trapped in a cage. What? Truth? My mind raced, sifting through every memory, every argument, every secret shared between sisters. Was it about a boy from high school? A forgotten slight? A lie I'd told my parents years ago? Nothing, absolutely nothing, made sense. The accusations were too grave, the threat too dire for any of our usual sibling squabbles. The following days were a blur of growing paranoia. Emily moved through the house like a ghost, her presence a constant, chilling reminder of her threat. She would eat breakfast with Mom and Dad, her laughter light and seemingly genuine, yet her eyes would occasionally flick to me, a silent, knowing challenge that sent shivers down my spine. I found myself scrutinizing every interaction, every casual comment from my parents, searching for some hint, some sign that they too knew this terrifying truth Emily spoke of. My writing, usually my solace, became impossible. The words on the page blurred, my focus shattered by the relentless questions circling in my head. I considered confiding in Mom, in Dad, but the thought of disrupting their carefully constructed peace, of introducing such venom into our otherwise loving home, felt like a betrayal in itself. And what would I say? Emily threatened to ruin my life over some scary truth I know nothing about? They would think I was being dramatic, or that Emily was simply being Emily, albeit a bit more intensely than usual. But I knew this was different. This was not Emily's usual theatrics. This was real. This was a calculated strike, and I was utterly alone, grappling with an invisible enemy and a threat that loomed larger with each passing hour. The house, once a haven, now felt like a gilded cage, and I, the prisoner, was slowly suffocating under the weight of Emily's unspoken truth. The weight of Emily's unspoken truth pressed down on me, making every breath a conscious effort. Sleep offered no escape. My nights were a restless blur of terrifying dreams where the truth took monstrous forms, chasing me through familiar hallways, always just out of reach. During the day, the quiet hum of our family home, once a comfort, now felt like a prelude to an impending storm. Every creak of the floorboards, every whispered conversation between Mom and Dad in the kitchen, became a potential harbinger of doom. I'd freeze, straining to hear, my heart thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs, convinced they were discussing me. Emily, meanwhile, perfected her performance. She was the picture of a loving, attentive daughter and sister, her smile radiant, her laughter echoing a false sense of peace. But her eyes, whenever they met mine, held a chilling clarity, a glint of triumph that spoke volumes. One afternoon, while Mom was out, Emily found me in the living room pretending to read. She sat opposite me, her fingers idly tracing patterns on the armrest of the sofa. "You know," she began, her voice deceptively soft, "there are some secrets that just can't stay buried. They fester, don't they? And when they finally claw their way out, they tend to take everything down with them." She didn't look at me as she spoke, but I felt the heat of her words, a venomous drip directly into my veins. Then she looked up, her gaze locking onto mine, and a faint, cruel smile touched her lips. "Especially the ones you think no one else knows." My blood ran cold. The air in the room grew thick, suffocating. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but my throat was tight, choked by fear. What could she possibly be referring to? I replayed every interaction, every shared confidence, every youthful transgression. Was it about the time I borrowed Dad's car keys for a joyride in high school? Or the small white lie about a broken vase that I blamed on our old cat? These were trivial, childish things, hardly capable of ruining my life. This was something far darker, far more insidious. The ambiguity was the worst torture, leaving my imagination to conjure horrors far worse than any concrete accusation. My once vibrant writer's mind, usually a wellspring of stories and characters, was now a barren wasteland, consumed by this single monstrous question. I'd stare at my laptop screen for hours, the cursor blinking mockingly, while my thoughts spiraled into a vortex of paranoia. I started avoiding Emily, making excuses to stay in my room or taking long, aimless walks around the neighborhood, desperate for fresh air, for a moment of respite from the oppressive atmosphere of our home. Even the comfort of my favorite aunt, Aunt Clara, who lived a few blocks away and usually provided a safe haven, felt too risky. Confiding in her would mean admitting to a terrifying, undefined threat, and the shame of not knowing what it was felt too heavy to bear. The tension escalated subtly but relentlessly. Emily began leaving things in my room. An old photo of us as children, a faded ribbon from a gift, a forgotten diary entry I'd scribbled years ago. Each item was a silent, loaded question, designed to make me search my own past for the answer she held captive. One morning, I found a yellowed newspaper clipping on my desk, detailing a local scandal from years ago, a petty theft, a small-town betrayal. It had nothing to do with us, or so I thought, but the accompanying note, scrawled in Emily's familiar hand, simply read, "Some stories never die, do they?" The message was clear. She was reminding me that the past was never truly buried, and she held the shovel. I was slowly being driven mad, caught in a psychological war, utterly alone against an enemy who knew my every weakness, and I was no closer to understanding the weapon she intended to use. The weapon remained elusive, a ghost in the periphery of my mind, but Emily's attacks grew sharper, more personal. My laptop, once an extension of my soul, became a mere prop, its blank screen a mirror reflecting my crumbling sanity. The words simply wouldn't come, strangled by the tightening noose of Emily's unspoken accusations. I tried to force them, to escape into the worlds I used to build, but every character felt like a distorted reflection of myself, every plot twist a cruel echo of my own agonizing uncertainty. My agent called, concerned, but I mumbled excuses about a difficult creative block, the shame of admitting the truth, that my sister was systematically dismantling my mind, too profound to voice. Emily, sensing my withdrawal, adapted her tactics. She stopped leaving objects. Instead, her weapon became silence, punctuated by pointed observations. She'd watch me across the dinner table, her eyes unreadable, then casually remark, "You look tired, sis. Rough night remembering?" Or, "Funny how some things just stick with you, isn't it? No matter how much you try to forget." Each comment was a tiny poisoned dart, designed to lodge itself in my conscience, to fester and grow. I found myself scrutinizing every interaction, every word, searching for a hidden meaning, a clue to the secret she held. My once close relationship with our grandmother, a comforting constant in my life, felt suddenly strained. Emily started spending more time with her, often recounting old family stories, her voice carrying just loud enough for me to hear snippets that sounded innocent enough, yet filled me with dread. Was she subtly poisoning Grandma against me? Or merely reinforcing my isolation, showing me who still held sway in our fractured family? One evening, I walked into the living room to find Emily holding an old photograph. It was of us, maybe 8 and 10, grinning widely, our arms around each other. We were at our family cabin by the lake, a place filled with so many happy memories. Emily looked up, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. "Remember this protagonist's name?" she asked, using my name for the first time in weeks, her voice unnervingly soft. "Before everything changed? Before that summer?" My breath hitched. The cabin. That summer. A flicker of something dark, something I'd buried deep, stirred within me. I couldn't grasp it, but the chilling implication was clear. She wasn't just hinting at a vague past anymore. She was narrowing the scope, pushing me towards a specific, forgotten moment. The air in the house grew thick with unspoken history, each day feeling like a slow-motion descent into a psychological abyss. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. My nights plagued by fragmented memories, distorted faces, and a pervasive sense of guilt I couldn't place. I started to wonder if I had done something truly terrible, something I'd erased from my own mind, a defense mechanism against an unbearable truth. Was I the villain of my own story? The thought was a venomous seed, taking root and spreading. I yearned to talk to Aunt Clara, to pour out my fears, but the shame of my own amnesia, the terror of confessing to an unknown sin, kept my lips sealed. Emily had successfully isolated me, cornered me, and now she was forcing me to confront a past that was both intimately mine and utterly alien. The anticipation was a living thing, a predator stalking me in my own home, and I knew, with a bone-deep certainty, that the reveal was imminent. It happened 2 nights later. I was in the kitchen, making tea, the quiet hum of the refrigerator the only sound breaking the heavy silence that had become our default. Emily walked in, her silhouette framed by the doorway, a small, worn wooden box held delicately in her hands. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it, the reveal. The predator had finally cornered its prey. She placed the box on the counter between us, sliding off the lid with a slow, deliberate motion. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, was a tarnished silver locket and a single dried daisy. My gaze fixed on the locket, an unbidden tremor running through me. It was so familiar, yet utterly alien. Emily's eyes, usually sharp and accusatory, were now brimming with a raw, agonizing sorrow. "Remember Lily? Protagonist's name?" she whispered, her voice cracking, breaking through the wall I'd built around my memories like a battering ram. "Our best friend? The summer at the cabin?" The name, Lily, was a spark. The locket, a flash. The cabin, a roaring inferno. Images, fragmented and distorted, began to assault me. The shimmering lake, the sun hot on my skin, the laughter of three girls echoing through the trees. A dare, a playful shove, a splash, and then silence. Not the playful silence of a game, but a suffocating, terrifying silence. My own frantic shouts, Emily's piercing scream, the water, dark and menacing, Lily's face, pale and still, beneath the surface, my hands reaching, grasping, but too late. The panic, the shame, the desperate, childish lie we'd concocted, whispered with trembling lips to Grandma about a sudden cramp, an unforeseen current, a tragic accident. Emily's silent, accusing eyes watching me, even as she corroborated the story. The memory didn't just return, it consumed me. I gasped, a guttural sound that tore from my throat, my hands flying to my mouth to stifle a sob. The sheer weight of it, the cold, undeniable truth of my carelessness, my negligence, my role in Lily's death, crashed over me, suffocating me. I hadn't just forgotten. I had buried it alive, letting it fester in the dark recesses of my mind, while Emily carried its full, agonizing burden. She hadn't been poisoning Grandma against me. She had been trying to make me remember, to share the unbearable weight of our shared secret. Every subtle jab, every veiled threat, every calculated whisper was a desperate plea for me to see, to understand, to finally bear witness to what I had done. Tears streamed down my face, hot and cleansing, blurring Emily's outline. I remember, I choked out, the words tasting like ash. "Oh, Emily, I remember everything." She looked at me then, truly looked at me for the first time in years. The venom seemed to drain from her face, replaced by an exhaustion so profound it twisted my gut. Her shoulders slumped. She didn't offer comfort or forgiveness or even further accusation. She just stood there, her own tears finally falling, silent and steady. We were two broken sisters, standing in a kitchen, finally sharing the unbearable truth that had cleaved us apart for decades. The following days were a blur of raw emotion. I confessed everything to Grandma, not as a defense, but as an act of penance. Her reaction wasn't anger, but a profound sadness, and a gentle understanding that spoke volumes of her own hidden grief and, perhaps, her own suspicions. Aunt Clara, when I finally called her, listened with a quiet strength, offering not judgment, but the promise of support. Emily and I didn't miraculously reconcile. The chasm was too deep for a single conversation to bridge. But something shifted. The wall between us crumbled, replaced by a fragile, exposed vulnerability. We started talking, haltingly at first, about Lily, about our guilt, about the different ways we had each carried the burden. I began therapy, seeking to understand the mechanisms of my own mind, to forgive myself, and to learn how to live with the truth. Emily, seeing my genuine remorse and my active pursuit of healing, slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to soften. The sharp edges of her resentment began to dull. The house still held its ghosts, but now, instead of being solitary specters, they were shared. We were still sisters, bound not just by blood, but by a tragedy we had finally acknowledged together. The future was uncertain, scarred by the past, but for the first time in a very long time, I felt a flicker of hope. A hope that perhaps one day we could mourn Lily together, truly together, and find a way back to each other. Not as victim and perpetrator, but as two women scarred by a shared, terrible secret, finally ready to heal.